So I have a mill deck, and I know a lot of people don't like mill, however I do find it a good and interesting way to somehow win the game, even though there is many ways to win Magic the Gathering, but that is a topic on a completely different video. In today's video, I will be getting my mill deck that I've had for a while and haven't really played because I've wanted to change it to another commander and change some of the cards. However, I wanted to make a video on it and just never knew how, so I kind of just went, screw it. Let's make the video. So in this video I will be going over the old deck, how it played, cards in it, going over them like a deck tech, and then going over the cards I took out and the cards I put in to make it the brand new deck that I have made. So when it came to the old deck, the old commander used to be Anowon, the Ruined Thief. For 2 blue and a black you get a legendary creature, Vampire Rogue, that is a rare. Other rogues you control get +1/+1. Whenever one or more rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature this way, you draw a card, and he's a 2/4. The point of this deck was to make rogues. There was a load of fairy rogues, rogues in general, a load of rogues from the D&D set, just overall a roguish theme. The point was to attack, do a bit of damage, mill a bunch of cards, and then it was able to steal their cards from their graveyard. So a lot of the cards in the deck stole from other people's graveyards. So the whole point was I would attack you with a rogue, it would do damage, you would mill a few cards, and then I would play a instant or sorcery or a card with an ability that goes pick a card from someone's graveyard and be able to put it on your field. So a few instances and a few sorceries that did that. And then they made a commander that's the same colors that does the same thing that I wanted the deck to do, however now with horrors. So the cards I took out were some of the rogues, a load of the fairy rogues, and put in a few horrors or more instants and sorceries, enchantments and artifacts and stuff like that to make people mill more, because it's one of those things where the point of the deck is I want people to mill and be able to play majority of their things. And the new commander is Captain Negorod. For 3 blue and a black you get a legendary creature, Horror Pirate, that is a mythic. Horrors you control have menace. Whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. At the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature card from an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn. Put that on the battlefield under your control and he's a 3/6. The reason I put this into the deck is it does everything I wanted the deck to do, except for now with horrors instead of rogues or fairies. So I get to attack with things, people get to mill with things, and then I'm able to take stuff with my commander now, and then I added in 1 or 2 cards that also do the same thing, where I'm able to play the creatures that were milled, artifacts and stuff like that, that were in your graveyard. This is the part of the video where I'll be going over the old deck, somewhat kind of like a deck tech, the way I go over it, the way on Moxfield is on order. So the first one is being Planeswalkers. So when it comes to Planeswalkers in this deck, there is 4 of them in total, and they are all Ashiok. The main reason Ashiok is in this is because Ashiok helps mill. It also gets rid of graveyard, so even if I can't steal someone's best card, if say someone's playing a Madrota deck and I mill half their deck, I also need to find ways to make sure that they cannot bring stuff back from their graveyard. So the Ashioks, 4 of them, are all in this deck, mainly because it helps me mill. It does what I want them to do. I do like having decks kind of with a theme, and I find that having all Ashioks, even if only one's good, I do enjoy having Ashiok in general in that deck. When it comes to the creatures of the deck, I won't be going over all of them. I will be taking a handful and a load of the cards out, especially if they are fairy rogues or if they just don't do what I want the new deck to do. However, I will be talking about some of the good cards in this deck. One of my favorite cards in this deck is Bruvag. The main reason is that he double mills. So I have a few cards in here that make people mill half their library. This makes them be out the game completely. One of my favorite cards of all times is Fleet Swallow. The main reason I think this is a great card is that on attack, it makes someone mill half their deck, and you can attack someone and then point that trigger at someone else. And I really do love the Secret Lair version that I actually need to get a second one for when it comes to this deck. The next one is Virexel, the Rising Deep. It's mainly in here because the alt art is really cool, and I do think this is a great card in general, and I find it very not very hard, but somewhat hard to make sure that people's instant and sorceries, I get to use them. And I find that I have added in, when it comes to the new cards, I added two more from the top of my head into this deck to make sure that I don't only steal creatures, artifacts, enchantments. Now I get to steal instants and sorceries too. So surprisingly, there was already 3 horrors, well, technically 3 horrors in this deck. The reason I say technically is one is a shapeshifter, and I'm just putting it on this part because it is a really good card and I will not be talking about it later on. So I have Consumer and Admiration in this deck. The reason this is staying in the deck is this creature has the chance to be absolutely huge, plus it mills people, so it's a really good card to keep in the deck. The next one is Nemesis of Reason. It's a good mill card, and the fact that it is also a horror helps the fact when it comes to my commander. So the reason it helps my commander, I'm keeping it in. The next one is Glasspool Mimic / Glasspool Shore. This is a really good card, and the main reason I'm keeping it in here is because it helps if I pick one of the horrors, and the fact that it is also able to become a land if needs be. I really do think this is a really good card and actually probably underwhelmed. Next, I'll be talking about the sorceries of the deck. When it comes to this deck, there is a handful of sorceries, but I'll only be going over the ones that are necessary, and that is going to be in 2 different sections. One being there are 3 really good mill cards, and if Bruvac's on the field, they become absolutely amazing. And then there is 3 sorceries where they do really well at taking other people's cards from their graveyard. So the first 3 I'll be going over are the mill ones. So there is Cut Your Losses, Maddening Cacophony, and Traumatize. All these cards pretty much just get half your library and you just fling them away. They become absolutely useless unless I steal your stuff or you have Graveyard Recursion. The also reason these are absolutely good, and I've mentioned it twice, is because of Bruvac. Bruvac makes it that you mill pretty much 3/4 of your library, because you mill half and then you mill half again. Originally, I thought it was you mill half and then you mill the second half, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that, and that kind of annoys me, but it gives me more cards to be able to take when it comes to the deck. But talking about stealing people's permanents, here are the 3 cards that I am going to be talking about when it comes to sorceries that help take permanents and creatures and stuff that I enjoy playing. So there is Rise from the Grave, Endless Obedience, and Dulge the Mire. When it comes to instances, there's not many in this deck. There's actually only a total of 2. So instead of just giving my thoughts and opinions on them, I thought I would just read them out and see what you think. Visions of Beyond. For a blue, you get an instant that is a rare. Draw a card. If a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, draw 3 cards. Fated Return. For 4 and 3 black, you get an instant that is a rare. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains indestructible. If it was your turn, scry 2. And now we are on to artifacts. There's 9 artifacts in total, however, majority of them are mana rocks and boots, but there are 2 cards that will help with mill. So I will be going over the 2 mill cards, or the 2 mill artifact cards now. Altar of the Brood. For 1, you get an artifact that is a rare. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of their library into the graveyard. Keening Stone. For 6, you get an artifact that is a rare. Tap 5 and tap it. Target player puts the top X card of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is the number of cards in that player's graveyard. When it comes to enchantments, there are 4 enchantments in the deck that help with mill, and kind of a card that I really do like, and I couldn't really find any way to put it because it's one of those cards that is really good and it does technically mill, but it also helps me take your things. So I'll be going over the 4 enchantments and then kind of talking about that kind of card that's in that mid section that I absolutely love when it comes to this deck. So there's Chord of Cunning, Drowned Secrets, Memory Erosion, and Patient Rebuilding. And when it comes to the card that I love to play in this deck, it is Mind's Dilation. For 5 and 2 blue, you get an enchantment that is a mythic. Whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. If it is a non-land card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. And finally, when it comes to this deck tech, I will be talking about the lands. When it comes to the lands, my lands are very weak. As someone that is into Magic the Gathering and loves playing the game, the hardest thing for me to get is lands, because lands are really expensive. And I usually have decks that I kind of prioritize that are like my 3 to 5 strongest decks. And the only reason they're really that good is because of the lands in them. So when it came to the old deck, the land base was very weak. However, I did give it a good little power up when it comes to the upgraded version of it. But there is 2 lands that I was kind of happy with when it came to this deck. One being when I bought a box of Return to Eldraine, I did get a pack and it had an amazing land in it and I absolutely loved it. And it kind of gave me an obsession when it came to these lands. I've always wanted to get more, but they are super pricey. So here are the 2 lands that I was kind of somewhat proud of or happy that I had in the old version of the deck. And here they are on screen now. Creeping Tar Pit. It's a land that's a mythic. Creeping Tar Pit enters the battlefield tapped. Tap for a blue or black. For 1 blue and a black, Creeping Tar Pit becomes a 2/3 blue and black elemental creature until end of turn. It can't be blocked this turn. It's still a land. Sunken Hollow. It's a land island swamp that is a rare. Tap at a blue or black. Sunken Hollow enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. And now that we've gone over the old deck tech, I will be going over the new one. So I'll be talking about the changes, the cards I took out or cards I put in, and I'll be giving reasons why I did it. So that's why I said this is a deck tech. It's more of a 2 deck tech in one, but they're similar, and it's changing an old deck to a new deck, but with the same theme. So I don't really know what to call this, a double tech or anything like that. So I'll be going over the same list, same order, but just the changes I've made. And we'll be starting off with the Planeswalkers. When it comes to Planeswalkers, I kept in all the Ashioks, but I added in the new Kaito. The main reason I added in the new Kaito is that I thought it worked well with the deck. It helps with draw. If I did attack and stuff, I'm able to draw twice, which is going to be more advantage, and I thought his ult would do somewhat good when it comes to this deck, and I do really like the card. However, the only change I would put in the what if he was completed version, because it does look like a really good horror. It's just I need to get my hands on one of them. Now when it comes to creatures, I took out these 3 creatures. And then I put in these. Sewer Nemesis. For 3 and a black, you get a creature horror that is a rare. As Sewer Nemesis enters the battlefield, choose a player. Sewer Nemesis power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in that chosen player's graveyard. Whenever the chosen player casts a spell, that player mills a card and he is a star. Guild Feeder. For 3 and 2 black, you get a creature horror that is a rare. It has fear. Whenever Guild Feeder attacks and isn't blocked, defending player loses 1 life for each card in their graveyard, and he's a 0/4. Gyruda, Doom of the Depths. For 4 and 2 hybrid mana of a blue and black, you get a legendary creature, Demon Kraken, that is a rare. It has Companion. Your starting deck contains only cards with even mana costs. When Gyruda enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among them. Those cards enter the battlefield under your control, and he is a 6/6. When it came to sorceries, there wasn't that many changes. I added in 2 cards, but I mainly took out these 2. And the 2 sorceries I put in, I think are really good for this deck, and here they are. Psionic Ritual. For 4 and 2 blue, you get a sorcery that is a rare. It has Replicate. Tap an untapped horror you control. Exile target instant or sorcery from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Exile Psychosis Ritual. From the Catacombs. For 3 and 2 black, you get a sorcery that is a rare. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a corpse counter on it. You may take the initiative. If that creature will leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. It has Escape. For 3 and 2 black, exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. When it comes to the instances in this deck, I doubled them. I went from having 2 to having 4. So I'm really proud that I was able to double the amount. So the 2 cards I got rid of are, and the 2 instants I put in to double the amount were these 2. Memory Plunderer. For 4 hybrid mana of a blue or black, you get an instant that's a rare. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Thought Scour. For a blue, you get an instant that's a common. Target player mills 2 cards, draw a card. I added in 2 artifacts, but I know one is a card that a lot of people will not be happy with, but it mills and it's a really good mill card and I want the deck to do well. So I know it's an annoying card, I know people's opinions on it, but it's one of those things where it is a really good mill card at the end of the day. So when it comes to artifacts, I took out these 2 cards to add in these 2 artifacts. Nautiloid Ship. For 4, you get an artifact vehicle that is a mythic. It has flying. When Nautical Ship enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Whenever Nautical Ship deals combat damage to a player, you may put a creature card exiled with Nautiloid Ship onto the battlefield under your control. It has crew 3 and is a 5/5. Mind Crank for 2, it's an artifact that's an uncommon. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player mills that many cards. And then enchantments. All the enchantments stay the same. I couldn't find through my folders or cards that I knew of a good mill enchantment that I didn't already have in the deck. So I took a few enchantments out, but didn't add any in. So if you have any enchantments that are really good for mill or what you think would be really good for the deck, let me know in the comments down below. Now when it comes to the land base itself, this is where majority of the changes happened. I took out 3 islands, I took out 3 swamps, and I took out 1 creature to put in a total whopping of 7 okay to quite good lands. And this is where majority of the changes happened when it comes to making this deck upgraded. The lands I put in were Choked Estuary. It's a land that's a rare. As Choked Estuary enters the battlefield, you may reveal an island or swamp from your hand. If you don't, Choked Estuary enters the battlefield tapped and taps for a blue or black. Nephilia Drawnyard, it's a land that's a rare, it taps for a waste. For 1 blue and a black, target player mills 3 cards. Tainted Isle, it's a land that's an uncommon, tap, add a waste, tap, add a blue or black, activate only if you control a swamp. Morphic Pool, it's a land that's a rare, Morphic Pool enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. Temple of Deceit, it's a land that's a rare, Temple of Deceit enters the battlefield tapped. When Temple of Deceit enters the battlefield, scry 1 and it taps for a blue or black. Temple of the False God is a land that's an uncommon, tap, add 2 wastes. Activate only if you control 5 or more lands. River of Tears is a land that's a rare, tap for a blue. If you played a land this turn, add a black instead. So now that this double deck tech is done, let me know what you think of the new deck. It is on my Mox field. It's called Rogues Not Mill. I will change the name of it. It will have mill in its name. That is going to be staying. If you want, send me a DM message and I will personally link it to you because I want people's opinions when it comes to this rogue deck, this new one. Also, I just realized I will not be able to show the old one, so I apologize on that. Next time I'll make a duplicate of the deck and then do the changes so people can see the old and the new. Also, if there's any cards you think I should add in this deck, let me know in the comments down below, and also let me know what you think of this deck in the comments there too. While you're down there, remember to like and subscribe, follow me on all my social media, and it will help me lots. If you like this video, I went on a rant about the One Ring, and that video is here. I have a playlist of deck techs. It's a new thing I'm trying out, so I kind of want people's opinions on that too. But also remember to subscribe because it will help me out, help me grow, and I want to make an audience that loves Magic the Gathering as much as I do and help me grow as a person and a content creator.